Welcome to London College of Communication's Value Talks. This series is dedicated to exploring race and gender and power and education. LCC has invited guests from across the arts and education and sport and literature and culture and media to discuss, challenge and develop ideas around values in 2020. My name is Jessie McLaughlin and I'm here hosting or interviewing Charlie Craggs.
Hey, Jessie.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm all right, babe. How are you?
Yeah, good. So I thought we could start with something like really obvious and simple. And I just wanted to ask you to say a little bit about yourself, where you grew up and where you studied. So like the beginning of your life.
Sure. Okay, so I am London born and bred. I am from Ladbroke Grove originally, which is like West London. Grew up, went to like an all boys school, which was fun, as you can imagine, like a really rough one as well. But then that was nice because that was like the prelude to UAL. So like I went from this like really like tough school where I was like really persecuted for being like very visibly LGBT, like the only one in the school sort of thing, to then I got into CSM for my foundation. And then actually I did like a little course at Chelsea, like a little pre-foundation, like a little thing for like, you know, like underprivileged kids. They have like what's that thing called? Oh, I can't remember what it's called. You know, like widening participation.
Oh
So they
yeah.
have like I did a course like that at Chelsea, and then I got into CSM for my foundation. No, sorry, wait, I can't go. Okay, this is so long. I'm like, what am I even saying? Okay, I'm getting them all confused. Yeah, so I got into CSM for my foundation and did an art and design foundation at CSM, and then I did my degree at LCF. And yeah, like it honestly was the best thing that could have happened to me because it was like a totally different world to like the 7 years I spent at my all boys school, being like really badly bullied for being like feminine and creative and all these things, and like just being embraced at UAL was like it was exactly what I needed, like academically but also just like personally. So yeah, like it's good. And then since then, like I've kind of I set up for my final project what I do now essentially, and it's like coming. I think next month is like the 7-year like anniversary, which is crazy. That like I also feel crazy that I graduated, like, well, not graduated, I did it 7 years ago, but like yeah, for my final project, I set up a campaign called Nail Transphobia, where I basically travel around the UK with a pop-up nail salon and a squad of trans nail techs, and we offer the public free manicures for the chance down and have a chat with a trans person, so that while people are getting their nails done, they can ask us questions, or we can just have a chat. But the point is that you're just getting to like meet a trans person, because most people haven't. And then that's where misconceptions come from. And then the transphobia is where like comes from the misconceptions, you know, like so yeah, it's just a way of like breaking misconceptions and making allies. But it's mad because like it was only like a little courseworky theoretical kind of project. We just had to come up with an idea, and I was like doing branding because for my BA I did art direction, like creative direction. So I was just like trying to like talk about how the charity like sector needs like a rebrand, like the volunteer, like the third sector, and this was kind of like pre like charities and like the like third sector kind of taking over like social media. And I remember all those like social media challenges. It was kind of like back when like 7 years ago, when it was a bit drier, you know what I'm saying? Showing my age, but it was a little bit drier. So I wanted to show like how you could use something fun like the medium of nails to get people like involved, because if you sit at like a desk with like leaflets about transphobia, no one listens. But the minute you offer a free manicure, there's like a queue out the door to like talk to a trans, you know? So yeah, that's what I do. Yeah.
So going back a bit then, that first like widening participation course you did at Chelsea, did you feel like that was, I mean, that kind of thing, I think lots of universities didn't used to offer so much, but more and more offer more and more. Do you think like it was like without that course, would you still have been able to go and do your foundation, or was that quite influential in itself?
I think it was influential just in terms of my confidence as well, because being like I'm the first person in my family to go to university, I think I would have definitely gone to university, but I probably would have aimed lower. So I don't think I would have aimed for like a top especially in the arts, like a top university, I probably would have been like, oh, be realistic, you probably can't get in there. Like I remember like even some teachers being like, oh, like no one gets into into CSM, or like, so I would have probably not applied. And like if you don't apply, you don't get. So and like just like having been on the course and like had teachers from the uni itself like encouraging us and being like, what is the worst that can happen? Like you get rejected. Like, but I think for a lot of like people from working class backgrounds, like you're stunted by your own kind of, it's from the conditions you're taught, like you're conditioned to believe there is like a certain amount you can do and a certain amount you can aspire to. But I think like had I not had people like externally kind of like pushing me and saying, you're really talented, you need to try, you need to just at least try, you can do this, like, and I think it was pivotal in kind of building my confidence, if nothing more. And also just like show it, like, again, kind of how I said about how when I left school and went to my foundation, it was like pivotal in like my confidence and just like, and in just in terms of my mental health, like, because having been really badly bullied, like I was like beaten down to the point where I just didn't have any like joy in me anymore, and also just didn't think that people like me could be happy, like LGBT people. Like I just like had never known, I was the only LGBT person that I knew, and all I had ever known out for being LGBT is being like bullied or whatever you want to call it. Like I didn't think that you could be like LGBT and be happy. So like when I'd go to like this short course, this what's it called, like this kind of like pre-foundation course, I just saw like people in the campuses being like, it was quite obvious that LGBT, or at least they looked queer, I guess you could say. And I was just like, oh my god, like there's people like me and they're happy. Like it was like I found my place, and it was like really important for that.
Yeah, I totally relate to that. I didn't go to art school, and I think if I'd gone to art school, I would have had an experience that more mirrors yours. But I totally remember like going to like the open days for universities and seeing people on the campus who were like openly queer. And again, like maybe not in the same way as you, but I like couldn't be openly queer in my school, but people like guessed anyway because it was so fucking obvious. So like, you know, just having these kind of constant little jabs like, oh, Jessie the dyke, blah blah blah, or Jessie's got like, you know, too much body hair or whatever, and then like just glimpsing a space where people, I mean, I don't feel like they were like completely liberated, but to me they looked completely liberated because they were walking around campus with like, I don't know, a little rainbow badge on or something, and that being like so amazing to me. And I think if I'd gone to art school, that would have just been like much bigger actually, because I feel
probably
like
would have. And you look way more art school than me.
Quite a queer space, or can be.
Yeah. Totally. It was like definitely like going from like somewhere like I was really badly bullied for, especially like how I dressed and stuff, to then going to CSM where I was having like my picture taken by like students every day, be like, oh my god, you're so fat, and it encouraged me to be even more like LGBT. Like I was like, I probably wore more makeup then when I was like presenting as a boy than I do now, like as a trans woman. It's like crazy. Like I was wearing like crazy things every day. Like it's just mad. It's so it's mad.
Yeah. But also you're attracted. I mean, like I'm sure like if we had been in the same campus, I would have maybe been too shy, but been so attracted to you as another queer person. Like,
oh yeah,
like there was space to do that. Whereas like in the school playground, you're sort of shuffling around. You can see there's other queer people. Well, I felt like I could see other queer people. Very few, but a few. But you couldn't ever admit to each other that that's what you could see in each other. Whereas finally in uni, you get that space.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true.
I love the thought of you walking around CSM with like cakes and cakes of makeup. That is
crazy, just, like literally insane. But also it was really good for me in terms of my personal development. And again, I feel like this is what uni is so important for. Like I learned more about myself than I did about art direction, but that's was worth the money for me. But like I learned from being around, because I never used the word gay for myself growing up. I had that word put on me, like people from like 7 years old were like, are you gay, like, and I just assumed, I guess I am gay because I'm being told I'm gay. Like I'm a 7-year-olds aren't sexual, so they're not thinking about having sex with men. A gay man is somebody who has sex with a man. So like I wasn't thinking about having sex at 7, but like I just like I was called it so much, and people just assumed it because I was so feminine that like I just like I thought I was, and I kind of clung to that because it's what like I was being bullied for, and it's what I thought I was. And when I went to CSM, it was really important because I was finally around gay people. And I realized I wasn't gay.
Yeah,
so like
yeah,
all that, and I was like, finally, I'm gonna find my people. And I got to the people, and I was like, you're not my people. Like, I want my money back. Like, but it was so important to like, if I hadn't have been around loads of gay people, I wouldn't have realized as early on as I did that I was trans. I don't think, because it's only by being around people who aren't like you that you realize like that you're different. You know what I'm saying? Like, even though it was a good, not like, it's different to be in an all boys school where like I was around people who aren't like me, but in a bad way. Like, I was around people who aren't like me, like gay guys, but like, and it was a really positive and affirming experience because it just showed me, I was like, oh yeah, I haven't quite found my people. Like, there's a difference between being like feminine and being female. Like, and that's kind of that like my first introduction to UAL was really important, and just like I said, like learning about myself more than learning about art and stuff, and just like being around other artistic people, but also just queer people or like people. Yeah, I don't know. It just was really, really pivotal in my like personal development, for sure.
Yeah, I totally relate to that. I feel like I didn't meet queer people or queer people like me who had the language to call themselves queer and talk about their gender until I like way after uni actually, and maybe that would have been. Yeah, I feel like I only had the language of like being gay until I was maybe like, I mean, I'm 31 now, so it's still like a while ago, but like maybe I was about 25 or something. Like, and the last time I could identify with, or maybe had like the way to speak about being like non-binary or not being a boy or not being a girl was when I was like 5 or something. And I could say to my mum like, oh, I want to wear these clothes and that clothes, but not like, you know, not be defined in my binary, in some sort of binary gender. But so yeah, I really, really relate to that actually about like still knowing that there's something wasn't quite there. Finding like a group of LGBT or LGB people and feeling much more at home, but still looking for some extra bit of language, an extra bit of like way of expressing myself that didn't quite fit just yet.
Totally. Like, that's exactly how I felt. Exactly.
Okay, so from there, could you say, I know you mentioned a bit about your final project and how it's kind of become what you do, but could you say a bit more about what you do and what you have done and kind of your life since uni, like your professional life?
So I just kind of ran with my final project because I had got a few like offers to make it like so like I said, my final project started as like a coursework, you know, like where you just like have to like conceptualize an idea, but you don't actually have to like make it a real thing, make it a physical thing. So I had all like this really good idea that I developed, or I thought it was a good idea anyway. I got a 2-1.
Charlie, let's just say now, it is the best idea I've
I think it's really good. I want my money back. Why did I get a 2-1? I want a first.
What the hell? You got 2-1 for that?
Yeah, I was like, I did my project at the V&A. I like did an event at the V&A, and I was like, why did I get a first? But anyway, I agree now. Looking back, it was my coursework wasn't great, but yeah, I just kind of like, because I'd got a big event, like I booked the V&A for my first event, I was like getting then offers from other museums who had heard about it. So like next week I was doing the Science Museum, and the week after that I just like, and then I was on a roll, and then I like realized, oh, there's some legs to this, like I could actually like make this a real thing. And I wasn't thinking about making it my job at that point. I was just thinking like, I wasn't even getting paid at this point. It was just about the activism for me. It was just about, because this was like, if you think about it, this was pre like Laverne Cox, pre like Janet Mock, pre Caitlyn, like this is like pre the massive conversational cultural shift we've had, where like everything, well not everything, but there's so much talk about trans stuff now. Back in 2013, it was like people didn't even know what trans meant. Like when I was doing Nail Transphobia and people asking me questions, the like often first question people would have is like, oh, so what is trans? Which is like fair enough, like I'm not judging them, because how are they going to know if they're not exposed to it by the media? But like it just wasn't talked about in the media at this point, like that you couldn't really name like a famous trans person. So I was just doing it solely for the good of humanity. I was just trying to do my bit for my community, because I was just like getting so much abuse in my early transition that I was just like, something needs to change. Like it was my way of almost like processing the trauma I was going through, of like, I can't stop what's like how people are going to treat me, but I can do my bit not even do my bit, but I can just basically, I can do something about it. I can either like cry and stay home and be upset, or I can try and like just like put some good out into the world to like combat the bad, if that makes sense. If not for the good of other trans people, just for my own mental health, just so I can like, just so I can sleep at night, essentially. So like I was just doing it for that at the start, and then after a while, I remember someone saying like, are you not getting paid for this? And I was just like, no, like I'm just doing it just to be like, just for the good. And they're like, you should be getting paid, like these museums have money. So then I started getting paid, and I was getting paid like nothing. Like I didn't know how much. Working class people, we just don't know, like, you know, you have no one telling you like, oh, you should be charging this. So I like undersold myself massively, but at the same time, again, it was still doing good. So I was probably doing it for like another 2 years then, just like kind of as a side hustle. So I was working in art direction still. I was doing like fashion film. And I was assisting a director who's amazing, Catherine Ferguson, who was like a lecturer at on my course, and she would make like fashion films like Selfridges and stuff. So I was doing like a lot of like that sort of thing. And then the activism stuff just started taking off. I feel like there was a real like cultural reset in terms of the conversation around trans people. And then like I started getting booked to do like media stuff and shoots and campaigns. And then that's when I could like start like actually making a living from Nail Transphobia. So like and it's great really, because the more like when I started being able to make a living, it meant that that's when I could start hiring other trans people to come and do nails with me, to make it like a bigger thing, because obviously I wouldn't expect anyone else to work for free, even if I'm happy doing so. So it meant that like I finally had some money to like and it also meant I could like kind of diversify the narrative. So like when I do get trans people, I always get trans people with different narratives to my own transitions. So like a non-binary person, or like a trans person of color or something, to come with me, so that the public are not just getting one kind of walk of transness when they're like talking to us. So it's been really, it's been just like a really like slow, steady kind of projective, is that a word? Is that trajectory, whatever it is.
I'm too dyslexic to say that word out loud, but I know what
trajectory, whatever it's called. Like, it's been very slow and steady, but like slow and steady wins the race, and like I'm still here. Still here 7 years later. But so like I've been really lucky in that like it's given me like I kind of started like using social media as like to give myself a voice, to like kind of, because obviously when you're doing nails you can only like do one person's nails at a time, maybe like 10 people in a day. That's not that many people really. But then I started using social media to kind of amplify the message, that I could like talk to more people in a day. And then because of my social media kind of blowing up, I started getting given like a voice in the real media, like in mainstream media. So I started doing like interviews and like news segments and stuff. And then I started doing like campaigns and shoots, and then I started like getting awards, and like it just all took off. And then I brought out my books. I got a book called To My Trans Sisters, and like it's just about this like the trajectory, not projective, whatever I said, but like it's about just like.
Oh, now I've lost you. Now team like punishing us for not being able to say that word. Oh, you're back.
Yeah, I'm gonna make merch of that now. That's gonna be my next season. But it really is just about like taking that step to get to the next step, and just like growing it. And I think growing organically is like with any project. So if anyone's watching this and like thinking about like taking their final project further or whatever, or just whatever, I just think it's just important to like build organically, right? You know, like if you blow up in the first year, I think if I blew up straight away, I don't think I'd still be here. So like 7 years on, it's a nice time to be blowing up.
So going back then, because you give me so much, so I want to go through the details. No, because it's so interesting, and I think it's so like genuinely so inspiring. But so you had this project from your final project at university, and the project to me seemed like, I'm an introvert, right? So the project to me seems quite exposing in many ways. You know, you're doing someone's nails, it's a really, really intimate space, and you're allowing people to ask you questions. And those questions, as you kind of hinted on, like in some contexts could be quite offensive, but in this context of your project, you're allowing for like naivety and like ignorance, as long as it's like kind of well-meaning. How did that feel at the very beginning? I mean, did you feel like you had enough support and protection around you? Did you feel like you could hold your boundaries? Or did it just feel like a really nice open conversation? I mean, what was...
No, I definitely like what you were saying at first about it being a bit It is, I don't know, because I'm naturally a very introverted person too. You wouldn't be able to tell, but like do you know what it is that like I've cultivated this extrovertedness because I've kind of had to almost like being like a trans woman, like especially if you're like, I'm a council estate girl, like you there's no time for being quiet. Like if you have to stand up for yourself, you have to stand up for yourself. So like I lost that introvertedness a while ago. Sometimes it gets sad for I kind of like feel like, oh, it's like I used to be so like nice and quiet, and now I'm like some bullshit, loud, horrible trans girl. But the point is that like it really
fucking great.
I really feel like I am, but I feel like it really set me up to be like perfect for this what I was doing. Like and that it was a conscious decision as well, because when I like started thinking about activism and like developing that coursework project, I was like kind of I kept saying to people like there's so many different ways of like getting involved with activism, which is like very like common knowledge now, but again like 7 years ago I think people thought activism you just had to be outside with like a placard and stuff. And you know, like now it's like you can do so many different, like there's just so many different ways, and like just it's about asking yourself the skills or the kind of qualities you possess that can help further your cause. So for me, like it was being very like able to talk to strangers and able to hold my ground and able to like stand up for myself, like if I had to, and put myself out there, because a lot of my trans friends are like, I could never, like I wouldn't want to sit across from a stranger, like never mind like 30 strangers in a session sort of thing. Like, but I'm like, I'm fine with that. And it's about like I understood I had that in me, like I'm good at, I can do nails and I'm like very talkative, so like yeah, that's kind of why I did it. And I've never like, I don't know, like my mum said to me when I started doing activism, she was like, you know, you're going to get so much like shit because you're putting your head above the parapet, like especially with the media stuff. That's when I got my first media thing. She was like, are you sure you want to do this? Because once you've done it, you can't stop the barrage. Barrage? Is it barrage? Barrage? Dyslexic moment again. I don't know. Who knows?
Literally, I'm the wrong person to interview, babe.
Who cares? People know what we mean. It's art school. I'm sure everyone listening is dyslexic as well. But the point is, it's like my mum was like, you won't be able to stop it once it starts. And like, if you put your head out there, like above the parapet, you're going to get abuse. And I was like, do you know what, mum? Like, things cannot get worse than they are for me right now. Like, I was getting so much abuse in my everyday life. And my just like going to the shop, going on the train, going to like just like all day, every day, I was getting people laughing at me, staring at me, some trying to like come in my face and fight me, like just constant, like not a single, like, well, at least not a week went past, but it really did feel like not a day went past at some points, because I was so like, not that there's anything wrong with being obviously trans, but I was so like obviously trans that like people are just so mean to people who look obviously trans. Like it was so hard. Anyway, so like I'd had a lot of experience of dealing with the public and like understanding like how to like hold my ground if I had to. So like I wasn't scared. And like also the settings that these are in as well, as like I would specifically like I wouldn't just like pop up outside of a Tesco. I'd pop up like in the V&A. So like the people in the V&A generally are like not going to be, I mean, I think I could take them in a fight, basically is what I'm trying to say. Like I'm like not scared of someone who goes to the V&A, like but then like I've started since then like doing like that kind of more like public facing stuff. Like I do like tons of universities. I've done LCC like 3 times, but like I've done like a lot of universities and festivals and all these sort of things, and still I feel like I'm very sure of myself, and I'm not afraid of like putting someone in their place if they're going to try and put me in my place, sort of thing.
Yeah, I also wanted to zoom back a little bit to the money thing, because I think I mean, I come from a middle class background. My parents owned the flat we grew up in, and I went to like a comprehensive, not a private school, thank gosh, but like I have a different relationship to money than you maybe do. And I feel like and I also worked in museums. I used to work in a big museum that we booked you for actually once.
Yes.
Yeah. You remember Queer and Now?
Yeah, great.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah, I think that was great actually. I mean, I had a lot of colleagues helping me and a lot of queer colleagues, so it was really, really good. But it makes me so mad to hear that 1, you weren't paid at all at the beginning, and then 2, you were paid like jack shit, basically. I think there's a huge problem with those kind of venues in general, and maybe like in your experience, like even more than that, like venues run by majority middle class and upper class people who completely take the piss with money and paying artists, because they have this different relationship with money that means that money, like, I don't know, is this unspoken thing. It doesn't like need to travel around in the same way. And when I was working, I really, really, I include my colleagues in this too, like we really try to like overturn that culture and be very like honest and upfront with money, but also like put money at the center of the conversation. I just wonder whether that kind of thing, do you feel has changed a bit, or do you still feel like class is so present and money is like so taking the piss with when you travel out?
Yeah, I think that the last point is exactly that. I think rather than it changing, you change. So like now I've become very good at like charging what I'm worth, and like even charging more than I'm worth. Even like my friends are like, I think you just it's something you learn. Like some people are lucky that they learn it young, when they can see their parents being really good with money and their parents like kind of giving them advice. But like, I had no one to like tell me that like what I was doing was worth any money, or what I was doing when I was getting paid was worth more money. And then like I spoke to, like, I remember like going on a date once with a guy who was like in advertising, so obviously he was like, he understood big money, like, because advertising is huge money, and he was like, you should be charging him 4 times what you're charging. And then even more, and that was like in like the first 2 years. But then even like recently, like I remember like a year ago or maybe like 2 years ago, so quite recent, because most of my jobs are like public speaking, like that's where most of my income comes from. And like, again, who has someone who in their life, especially a working class person, no one, I don't know public speakers, like no one is telling me how much I should charge. So again, I started to understand. I've done so much for so little with public speaking. But like I had someone tell me, who was like not even as big as me, no offense, that's not being big-headed, but like someone who like is in the same sort of field, but like with a way less of a like a media profile and Instagram kind of social media profile, and like had been doing activism for way less long, and was getting paid like double what I was getting paid. And like, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, I'm so stupid. But like, you just don't know what to charge. Like, so I just had no clue. But like, you just, once you learn it, I think it's really important just to like keep the door open for other people like you, or other people. It's not even just a class thing, but just basically just like making sure like we are, like you said, more transparent about money. Like, it's such a British thing to like be quiet and hush about money, but it helps no one. Like at the end of the day, like, so now me and my friends who are all kind of, even people who aren't doing activism, but people I know, I'm so open about money, whereas I will tell you that to the penny what I got, and then you know now what you can charge that brand, or you can charge that institution. Like, it's really important to just make sure you're leaving the door open for the people coming behind you, so that they're not getting paid like £50 for a talk like I was. I mean, like, I think that's really important.
Yeah, because I also like I mean, I had a different relationship to money, but I also wasn't, when I was in a position of like booking artists, I was like, I'm sure that this is fair and sustainable and like not taking the piss. So I looked to like some resources on the web, like this artist union that do like a kind of pay sheet, which they say like, okay, this is the kind of a reasonable amount to charge like someone, if you have like 5 years experience and you're doing a half-day workshop or talk or something, blah blah. So I use that kind of thing when I'm like really in doubt. And now, like a few years on, I feel a lot more like confident with what's reasonable, what's acceptable, and what's like fair. But I wonder if you have like a kind of, you know, for people watching this and wanting to go into kind of similar like ways of working, like ways of earning money, do you have like a rule of like, okay, if it's a museum, I charge maybe like, I don't know, 2/3 of what I charge like a commercial company. If it's a massive brand, I charge 4. Like, how do you do the calculations in your head, or how do you value things nowadays?
It's quite hard to like give advice to someone who's starting off, because when you're starting off, though I do think it's really important to get paid, I think you also kind of have to do your dues. You can't be coming in charging what someone who's been in the game for 7 years or for even 3 years. You can't be like expecting the same. Well, you can expect the same, but you're probably the same. And it's like, there's a reason. You got to do your dues, and you got to do a few shitty gigs to like be able to say, I do public speaking, or I do activism, and then you can start getting paid. But like, I think for me at that point, so some advice to anyone who's like in that point now, it's about kind of just testing the waters, and kind of usually you can like get like the brand or the institution you're talking to will kind of offer you something, and you can see after you've been given a few offers, like after maybe like 2-3 events, like what the kind of going rate is of what they're thinking, and you can haggle. So like, but it's good to have like kind of oh, okay, this is kind of like the set rate, and then you can like talk to other people. Like, I think I don't know, like I'm the sort of person that if someone was like asked me for some advice, I tell them, like I'd be very straight up, like I said. So maybe like ask some people who are doing similar things to what you're doing, of what they charge now, but what they charged when they were like kind of your level. And then like just like I don't know, like me and my friends just like having a really good like kind of open conversation around like how our rates have changed over time. So like me and my friends who like were friends like 3 years ago, like would like talk about rates, and now our rates are totally different now. So like just like making sure that you're keeping your friends and like in the conversation, and like once you like, I keep saying like, I'm so uneducated, but I don't know, it's just I don't know, like once you know, like once you get, I don't know how to say, like once you get a booking somewhere, you kind of like know, oh, I can charge this sort of thing for like other. So like you kind of learn that at the going rate for like, I don't know, like a talk or an Instagram post or like an event at a museum, it's pretty standard. Like I'd say like everything's on a, and then you just kind of grow from there. And then like once you like, I think it's really important as well about understanding that it's not just like a day rate you're being paid for, like or not even a day rate, but like I had someone recently be like, well, we only need you for like an hour. It's a Zoom for an hour. So like, what would you charge us for an hour of your time? And I'm like, well, it's not just an hour of my time. It's all my fucking expertise over not even more than 7 years, because I've been like, I was studying before 7 years, but like, it's all your expertise, your education, the money that went into your education, the money that went into like, just, it's all of this. It's all the accolades, all the awards, my book, it's all my magazine and newspaper articles. It's like, there's so much more than just like an hour of my time, because they try and downplay. So just understand your worth in that, like you're more than just like your time. You are your expertise and your lived experience and your trauma, and like just understand what you're worth. And like sometimes just go crazy, like shoot out a really like a number that to you. I don't know, what's that rule they'd say, like charge what you charge and then put like 10% on top, or 25. I don't know what it was. There's a rule like that where you like chuck a bit of extra on top, and just because they will probably try and bring you down anyway, whatever you go in with. So like just like oversell yourself slightly, and then you'll be pleasantly surprised when you can like get what you deserve.
Yeah, great. I think that's really great advice. And for me, it feels like what you're saying is over time you develop like a belly instinct that I guess is related to your confidence, but also related to like how much work you accumulate, and like how well you refine like your offer or what you do, and slowly that comes into play. But basically never undersell yourself. Always recognize that even at the very beginning of your career, you still have your lived experience, you still have the skills that got you like them talking to you for a booking in the first place, and like recognize that. And recognize when you're moving up a level, when you're like, okay, I've been doing this for a year now or 2 years now, like maybe it's time to like readjust my
exactly.
Great. I think that's I really wanted to talk about that because I feel like it does not get talked enough.
It doesn't. It's such a British thing to not talk about money, and it helps no one. Like the money's there. There's not like, it's not like there's like a pie of like, once all the money's gone, it's gone. No, there's like endless money. Like there's money. These brands have loads of money.
Exactly, and it's such a middle class thing, I think, for people to like give this impression that there's this pie and only so much that can go around. It's always bullshit. It's always bullshit. So the next thing I wanted to ask you, so I did my BA in English literature.
Oh, amazing.
And I always I'm really, really big fan of books and fiction and poetry. And I just wanted to ask you about like language, because I guess it's also related to how like you professionalize yourself as a I don't know what language or words you use to describe yourself. I mean, do you use the word artist or author or writer or activist or nail technician or performer? Like, what words do you use when you're describing what you do, and how important is that to you?
Oh God, that's a good question. I don't know. I feel like we're in this generation of like, what's that word? I'm forgetting all my words. Say like hyphens, hyphenated. You know, like we're all like this slash. We're like slash queens. Like we just like have a million slashes after our like name, because like, but it's like how we like, I don't know. It's this new world we live in where like you can be like, you have to be a jack of all trades, because it's kind of like, you just kind of need to be. So I guess the main like slash is an activist. I've always called myself an activist. It's a bit of like a murky like some people really don't like it, some people do like it. I feel like what I'm doing is activism. Like it's maybe a different kind of activism, but I think it's activism. And then author, since I've had my book out, and then like what else? Like I guess like I know it's a really weird. I don't even know. Like, do I like call myself? I think calling yourself an influencer is so tacky. But if it wasn't for social media, I wouldn't have been. I would be homeless and hungry right now. I'm not even kidding you. I'm like totally self-employed, and all my jobs are like public speaking mostly, and Nail Transphobia events. That's all physical, intimate events. They all got cancelled. I have had nothing but social media to feed myself with for the last 8 months now, whatever it is. So I guess like, I do some influencer stuff. I do a little bit of modeling, but like again, I don't know how I feel about the word model, because I'm not like I'm more like, I don't know how to say, like, I don't know. It's really weird. Yes, I don't know what I am. I'm just like a hyphen.
Yeah.
I'm just like a big hyphen, babe.
Queen.
A hyphen. I don't know what I am. Yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't feel like if I refer to you as a writer, or if I refer to you as an author, those kind of things don't feel as precious to you.
You can call me whatever you want as long as you're paying me, baby. Like, I have like the skills for the bills. Like, if you want to, like, if you need a writer, I'll be a writer. If you need a dancer, I'll YouTube a dance routine. I'll learn how to do that dance. I will like learn, honey. This is what I'm saying. You need to be able to adapt, shift, and adapt. Yeah. I'm like, very much about like just doing whatever. I'm doing like TV present at the moment, which is interesting. It's a lot harder than I thought it would be, but like I've got a doc coming out. I don't actually know it, because it was supposed to come out during Corona, and then it never, because we never filmed. But like now it was supposed to be coming out next month, but I don't think next month is very soon. But yes, I don't know when it's coming out, but keep your eyes out for. It'll be on BBC, and it's about trans like healthcare, mostly about trans teenagers, but like it's about trans, kind of how we're being failed by the system. Yay. Fun.
Yeah. Fucking hell. And is that a one-time thing or a series?
It's like a long, I think it's like an hour long sort of thing, like an in-depth kind of so I'm traveling around, like today after this I'm going to go up to Liverpool to meet a young trans person and talk to them. It's a lot about like self-medicating, because we're having to wait like 5 years for an appointment at the GIC and stuff, like just to discuss transitioning, not even to like take any hormones or have any surgery, and how it's like talked about the opposite in the media, how it's like it's made out like you go to a GP and then next week you're on hormones. It's like, so it's basically just like unpacking again, kind of like what I do with Nail Transphobia. It's about like breaking down misconceptions and making allies. So please God, it will help change some like narratives and stuff and get people talking.
I can't believe it won't. I feel like what you've done with Nail Transphobia has been so like influential, and I mean, obviously I'm talking more about a UK context, but I'm sure you know more about what it's done beyond the UK. But I feel like in the UK it's completely like as you say, it also started so early. It started so early in this entire conversation. So I feel like building on that is, I mean, TV is such a great medium, right? Because everyone watches TV. So I feel like it will be fantastic. I can't wait. And maybe that kind of plays into my next question, because I wanted to talk about how you grew up and what you studied and where you grew up, all of those things, like how they play into what your work looks like now, and what choices you make now in your work, and whether they still influence, whether you can still feel those kind of early experiences in what you do, because this thing of like that you just talked about like breaking down stereotypes, or like re-educating perhaps, or re-opening up a conversation through like intimacy and through like conversations and through like I don't know, just talking to people one-on-one and trusting people with that seems to be like a running thread.
Totally. And I think it kind of links to what I said about when you're getting paid for something, understand that you're getting paid for like the wealth of your experience that you're bringing to some things, and like you can't separate like who you are, where you grew up, what you studied, like it's part of you, it's intrinsically part of you, and like and it's part of your worth. And I definitely can see like my upbringing, what I studied, like you said, all these things I can definitely recognize in my work today and how it like shaped my work. Like for example, one of the main things like I feel like is apparent about me, maybe compared to other activists, is how I talk. And I think it's really important to, in my eyes, like what I do is like keeping my kind of working class, like, I don't know, just the way I talk. I don't like, even when I'm on stage to like 1,000 people, I'm not going to start talking posh. Like I'm gonna, and I think that's the charm in what I do. And that's what, like, often, like, if you're, I don't know, just I've always felt with activism, sometimes it can be a little bit too academic, or be using words that kind of exclude people because they just don't understand like certain like terminology, especially with things like trans issues and like gender stuff. And I, for me, it's really important to like keep it accessible and like talk in a way that like people like from where I'm from, but all over the UK, are going to understand, like people like not being left out of the conversation, who are probably need to be included most, maybe because, I don't know, maybe they're the people who, like I said, who need to hear it most. I don't know. So like for me, like I see part of that in what I do today, of like my working class roots. And then I see like in terms of what I studied, even like I see like, you know, I said about being like a jack of all trades. I think it's really important to like understand, like, so when I'm doing like TV stuff, I like, because I've worked behind the camera before, like I understand things. I don't know, like, because I don't know, like, for example, like I sell merch, which is like a way of making money. Like I can design the merch myself. I don't have to like pay someone to. When it came to doing my book, like I could design the cover. Like the covers they were offering me were horrible. Like, it looked like a GP post. It looked like a poster for like a GP surgery with like chlamydia or something. For like, are you 16 to 25? Do you think you have chlamydia? It was so bad. And like, or like a BBC bite size. It looked like so bad. Girl, it was horrible. So like, because of my like background in like creative stuff, I could do that myself. Or like, I don't know, like when I don't know, like I started doing like Patreon, so I can like edit my own YouTube videos. And because I like did film, like, you know, like it's just about it's like, it's just like you use all the skills you accumulate over time. So just remember that when you're kind of like charging places like that, you are a whole package.
And this also is another thing I really wanted to ask you about, actually. Like, I wanted to know about what your taste is. I mean, like in a pure kind of aesthetic sense, because also a lot of stuff you do, as you say, is very linked to like aesthetics, right? I mean, nails are an aesthetically beautiful thing to get done. I feel like art direction must have, I actually don't know very little about art direction, but I guess that I guess your taste, like what you like, what turns you on, is like very part of your work. Can you talk a little bit about like what you like?
I think that's the main thing that I learned from my degree. Like a lot of us finished the degree and we're like, people always ask like, so what is art direction? And we're like, I don't really know, to be honest. Like, it's like no one really knows what it is, even once you've done the degree. But like, what I think I learned most from it is just like developing and kind of like refining my taste and like my understanding of taste, if nothing else. Like, just like, I have a really good, like, I've got I'm really good at references. Like I can like, I think that's kind of what an art director really should be, is like someone who can like, you say a word and you think of like 10 like and I can just like run with like 10 different ideas, sort of thing. And like it's been really key for me, and just like establishing myself as like a voice, like in that I specialize in branding. Like I was saying, that my project came out of branding, and that's like, I think the power of like understanding your brand is so important when you want to like kind of establish yourself from your competition. So like I understood that there was a niche in the market for like a trans girl like me, who was like working class, spoke in a working class way, like was like kind of a bit more likable, like a bit more like girl next door, like council estate girl next door, like that kind of vibe. Like I don't know, like it's really important to just like understand like where there's like a niche. And like I think that's what my what I learned on art direction kind of helped me to do. And just like understanding, like, I don't know, just like that. I just knew like that Nail Transphobia would be sick, and it is sick. And it's because it's because of my degree. I think that helped me just to like understand like how to build it and stuff, like make it like bring in the nails, because it could have just been like, I could have just been like a public speaker, but I wanted to do something with like like bringing in the nails is so random. I was like, why did you think of nails? And it's like I didn't even know how I thought of nails, to be quite honest. But like it was a happy accident, and it's like I think that just like is seen anything like that. So I think I think that's kind of what I learned from my course, is just like having really good references, which sounds like a really weird, pointless skill, but it's really useful. I don't know.
No, I can really see that. And I think just to kind of zoom forward again to your book, maybe you could tell us a little bit about the book actually before we talk about it, because it's been what, three years now since it's been published. So you can talk about like it'd be great if you talked about like how it came about, but also how you feel about it like 3 years on.
Yeah, it's a really weird one actually, because I can't believe how long it's been. I definitely should have done another one since, but you know when you're just not in like a good headspace, and it's really hard to like turn out like such like a intense kind of labor of love. Like I don't know, I'm just not in the right headspace. But yeah, I'm proud of it. It's basically now, To My Trans Sisters is a collection of about 100 letters from trailblazing trans women, offering advice to. Well, originally it was meant to be offering advice to people like girls, well, because it's more for like feminine, trans feminine people. Okay, let me start again. This is a mess. Okay, so let me start again. So To My Trans Sisters is a collection of about 100 letters from trailblazing trans women, kind of sharing their stories and kind of what they wish they could tell themselves, like looking like to their younger trans selves, like after having gone through their journey. And it's about also just like how they not only made it through transition but made it to the top, because they're like trailblazers in their field. So it's like politicians and scientists and like sports people and celebrities, and it's supposed to be like kind of like it's a few things. So like for me at first it was about just like a book of like sisterhood, like trans sisterhood, so that like people who are transitioning can like read it and kind of learn from the mistakes of the girls who went before them. Because when you transition, you don't know, most people don't know anyway. I didn't for like 2 years, no another trans person, in the same way like people just don't know trans people. Like, so like who have you got to like tell you, babe, this is like, don't make the mistakes that I did, sort of thing. Like, this is how you do this, this is how you do this. But it's also just a way of like kind of like capturing, documenting our history, I guess you could say. Like, it's because all the letters come with like a bio that I've written about the woman, and I think that's really important because mainstream doesn't really care about preserving the kind of culture, like the legacy of the cultures of marginalized communities. And I think it's really important that like we preserve them ourselves, because no one else is going to. So like I wanted to like make sure that, because it's a lot of women in there who aren't like Laverne Cox and like Carmen Carrera and Janet Mock aren't in there, maybe in book 2, but like the point is that I wanted it to be like people who you won't have heard of, maybe like some people who are a bit more like, yeah, just like less like, I don't know, like just the people who might have like when they die, which sounds really depressing, might have like history might just forget about, because like I said, mainstream doesn't care to keep our histories alive. And actually it's really interesting because one of the women in there did actually die during editing, which is really sad. But so she was like 80, I think 83 or something, and she was like the first ever like trans woman on like primetime TV in like America in like the 60s, and she wasn't even like out, so it's not like she wasn't even out on TV as a trans woman, but she was just like it's just mad. Her story is amazing, but I feel like people just don't know her name because she's not talked about, because like I said, it's just mainstream just doesn't care to keep like our legacies alive. So I just feel really proud that like, for example, her story and her legacy is in the book, and like the next generation of trans people are gonna keep that like that legacy alive. So that's what it was for me as well. It's like helping girls today, but also helping like our community, like helping girls in the future, like helping to keep that alive, like the sisterhood and the legacy.
Yeah, and I like, as a queer person, I'm not a trans woman, but as a queer person, I feel so grateful that you've done that you've documented that, archived that's there for me, for my like family, from like, you know, any family that will like continue beyond me. Like I feel completely like overwhelmed actually that exists, because as you say, like it's so inaccessible, and I feel like I grew up with all of those stories so inaccessible to me, and now slowly over time things like your book and the Museum of Transgender in Brighton, and like, you know, like small but very significant moments where I feel like, okay, things are being written down, or they're being preserved, or they're being protected, or they're being valued, you know, and that to me is a huge like tidal change from how it felt to be little queer kids, you know, in the 90s. But I also,
much, by the way, that's
yeah,
really,
so
really
honestly,
sweet.
thank you. It's just such an amazing thing. And I think also I'm really, really like interested in this connection between the Nails Transphobia project and the book, because both for me signal like deep intimacy. And that's another thing that, as you say, queer people, or my experience, and it sounds like yours too, miss in the very beginning of our lives. You know, intimacy with other queer people feels so like distant, feels so far away, feels so impossible. And I feel like in one very kind of like immediate and personal way, you built it with Nail Transphobia, and then in a second, more public, but still maintaining that like deep intimacy, you built it with the book. And I wonder if you make the connection between the two projects. Like,
I haven't.
no.
But I'm gonna now. I'm gonna steal that. That's good.
Yeah. In some ways, they are the same project. You know, they are a one-to-one experience. If you were to do my nails, or I were to do your nails now, I feel like we would have a conversation that is just ours. Like,
yeah,
you know, because as you say, it's this one-on-one thing. There's no one else involved. Like, even when we put you in the tape, you know, there was like the whole of Tate Britain was teeming with people, and we had your nail station, and the conversation between you and that person was just the two of you.
yeah.
And it was so nice to have that like deep intimacy in the middle of this like huge like people everywhere festival. I felt like that was so significant to the event, such an important part of it. And then I feel like with the letters is exactly the same thing. I mean, I feel like there's this tradition of women like throughout history writing letters to each other as a way of like communicating our like our as like femme people. I don't really identify as a woman, cis woman. I don't know, like communicating outside of patriarchy, outside of like a male gaze, outside of like violence that comes from like cis or heteronormative narratives. And I feel like this medium of the letter is very, very significant.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. That's such a nice. I'd never thought of it like that. If I'm honest, I could just be like, yes, that's exactly why I did it. But like, honestly, that's such a poetic way of looking at it. I can't really even remember why I decided. Like, I think it's. Yeah, I can't. I'm not even gonna blag it and be like, yeah, that like I did it because I can't even. I can't even remember. It's really weird that actually, like, what I will say, what I can remember. Also, my memory is awful. But I kind of came up with the idea for the book. I didn't have a name for it, but like I came up with the idea for my book in the coursework that I did for Nail Transphobia. So I didn't know that it would take the shape of like To My Trans Sisters. I didn't know it would be like letters from trans women or whatever. But like I knew that I like wanted a book to do with like a book about trans sisterhood sort of thing, and I wanted it to like have like letters in it. I just always was really drawn to like letters. I actually really wanted it to be like handwritten letters. I'd love to do like a coffee table book of like actually like scanned in like beautiful like handwritten like messy handwriting letters. I think that'd be even nicer. But there wasn't the budget.
That is book 2.
That's probably like book 10, babe, when I get like when I'm like the Beyonce of the trans community and I can actually afford it, because that's expensive.
That is
But
expensive. That is expensive.
But yeah, that's hopefully in the future.
Yeah, I just think there's something so beautiful. I mean, I also love reading essays. Like I say, I like reading in general. I like poetry, like fiction. I love short stories. I love essays. But I think there's something so I don't know, so also everyday about the letter. You know, like how you're talking about how to communicate with people and not bog it down with like language that's inaccessible. You know, if I was to, for example, like talk to my relatives who are in Liverpool on my mum's side about my transness, or like talk to my grandparents on my dad's side who aren't around anymore, but about like gender or all of those kind of things, it would be the letter that I would choose. You know, I wouldn't write an essay and like point them in. It would be a letter to them, because it would be something that they could comprehend and understand and like connect with me through. So I think it's such a simple idea, but I think it's really so beautiful.
Maybe then to
really, what's the life of it? I mean,
the book.
Does it still come up in your daily working?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's like a very niche book. Like, it was never going to be like a bestseller, obviously, because I'm like appealing to like 1% of the population. So like it's like a tiny not even 1%, because that's trans people. Like trans women make up even less than that, like probably like 0.5%, I don't know, 0.6%. So it's like never gonna be a bestseller. But it was never about that. For me, it was just about the preserving our legacy and just like helping the next generation of, even though I guess I'm not necessarily not part of that next generation, but just the people coming behind me, because like it was hard. Like my early transition was so hard, and I just didn't want it. I just, if I slight way, like make it a little bit easier for someone. I know that if I had that book when I started my transition, it would be like the best thing, because I just would have learned so much of like just of like it just would have helped. It just would have helped to just have that kind of big sister figure, just to be like, babe, sort it out, like don't do this, do this, like sort of thing, like on like mental stuff as well as physical stuff. Like it would have helped me a lot. And I think that's really important. If anyone watching is thinking about ever doing a book, just like think about making the book that like you wish you had, like now, or like growing up or whatever. Like just like if you needed it, like someone else will have needed it. And like I get loads of like messages and emails and DMs from like trans people, especially obviously trans women mostly, saying just like your book helped me so much. Like I've like cried reading them sometimes, because they'll be so emotional, like people being like, I tried to kill myself, and like I'm in like they were in like a psych ward. This one person, they like live in like middle America, where it's just like not okay to be like LGBT, and they were like, I've like finally, like, because I knew I was trans, I was like trying to kill myself, and now I've finally accepted myself. And I think it's because like I've seen in your book that there's like a sisterhood, like there's like, even if I'm going to be rejected by my family, like I have a family, like, and I think that means more to me than like book sales. Like I make nothing on this book, but like that is worth 10 times more than any money I could make. So yeah, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Totally agree. There's actually an amazing quote, which is almost like word for word what you just said, from Toni Morrison. So she's like
love her.
America. Yeah, she's amazing. For anyone who doesn't know her, you should read everything she's ever written. She was an American author, and she actually was an editor until she was in her late 30s. She didn't write her first book until she was in her late 30s. And so she spent her career like editing all these books. And then there's this amazing quote she says somewhere in an interview, I think, where she was like, I just hadn't read the book that I wanted to read. And then I realized I had to write it.
Yes.
And then she came out with The Bluest Eye, which is like such an amazing novel.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think what you say is completely true. We need to, like, if it doesn't exist, we need to create it, because as you say, there will be people, if we needed it, there will be people who need it.
Amen. That's such a good point.
Mm-hmm. So last question, because I've kept you for over an hour now, I see. What's next? I mean, you talked a tiny bit about the documentary.
Yeah, so the documentary is probably the thing I'm most excited about. I wish I had a name for it, but like there's like, you know, you get like working names, and it's absolute shit. It's so bad. I'm not even gonna say it, because I'm like, you are not putting this name on the documentary. Awful. But I hope the documentary will just help in, like I said, just changing the kind of narrative a bit, or not even just changing it, but just like helping people to understand that the narrative they're being sold is absolute bullshit. Like it's so wrong, and just like the stark reality of the situation is like just how bad it is and how things need to change. Like we're like, it just I just really hope that it just like just obviously it's not going to change the world or change even the UK kind of system with healthcare, but just that it just does something, just like open a few minds about it, start a few conversations, and just like I think just like generally, like, and this is what I think this whole kind of talk, kind of the motif that's run through, is that it's just about like doing your bit to help the cause that you're fighting for, you know, like. So just like, I hope this does another little bit for it. And then like, it's about, if we all do we can't change the world on our own, but if we all did our little bit to change the world would change. You know what I'm saying? Like if we all did something. So it's about just like doing my bit. And I just like hope that everyone watching, like, especially in this kind of current cultural climate that we're living in, I think it's just so important that we are just all really doing our bit. So yeah, I've got the doc coming out. Hopefully that'll be out soon. On BBC. It's on BBC 3, but also on BBC 1. And then I'm trying to think what else. I should do another book. I just need to like try and be a bit more sane before I do. Like I feel like I've just been like having a really like bad time mentally. And then it's the 7th birthday of Nail Transphobia next month, so I'm like, that's really exciting. And I mean, like, Corona's kind of a big cock block to that, but like, I'll try and do something. So like, yeah, if people want to like find me on Instagram, I'll probably be doing something to do, I don't know, maybe some like merch or like a series or IGT series. I don't know. So I'll do something for it.
Please do some merch. I would love some merch. Please.
Yeah, I'll send you some merch.
Yeah,
my favorite now.
I think that sounds amazing. I can't wait for the documentary. I really can't.
Thank you.
It'll be great. And I also can't wait for the merch.
Thank you so much, babe.
But thank you so much. This has been great. I was so excited when Ned said I could speak to you for a little time. So I think, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You're a babe. Thank you so much.
You're such a babe. Have a safe trip to Liverpool. I love that city. It's my second
I love that city.
After London, Liverpool is the one.
I agree. I love it.
Give the Mersey a kiss from me.
Absolutely. It was so nice to talk to you, babe.
So nice to talk to you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
See you later.